Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is David Vucich, spelling V like Victor, U-C-I-C-H. I'm a captain with Madison County Sheriff's Office and commander of the Major Case Squad activated in this case. I'd first like to express my deepest sympathies to the family, friends, and colleagues of the victim of the case. I knew the victim personally, and he was a generous man. He will be missed. He was well known throughout the community and made generous donations to worthwhile causes. My thoughts and prayers go out to everyone in this. I want to impress that our respect for the victim's family and to respect their privacy. Limited details regarding the evidence or what took place at the crime will not be discussed. I hope this sentiment is reciprocated by the media and they respect the victim's space during this healing time. Secondly, I'd like to take a look behind me. I'd like to commend the tireless efforts of all these investigators here, talented law enforcement officials that worked in the case, in addition to the ILEAS Mobile Field 4 search team. I would like to recognize the State's Attorney's Office, the Madison County Coroner's Office, and Illinois State Police. They were extremely instrumental in this case. Their community should recognize them and be fortunate to have them within their jurisdictions. This case could not have been done without their dedication. In my 22 years as a law enforcement official, I've seen a lot of gruesome cases, but this one elevates to the top of heinous and senseless crimes. Now, following is a synopsis of what had occurred. On January 4th, 2020, at approximately 8:56 p.m., the Madison County Sheriff's Office responded to a 911 call at the address of 4586 Mooney Creek Road. This is in rural Edwardsville, Illinois. Upon arrival, they discovered the body of a deceased male who was subsequently pronounced dead at the scene. The deceased male is identified as Randy L. Gori, who is a 47-year-old male and resides at that address. Excuse me. A vehicle described as a black 2020 Rolls-Royce SUV Cullinan was taken from the residence. The Madison County Sheriff's Office subsequently activated the Major Case Squad. Over 25 investigators from different agencies are participating in the investigation and currently investigating numerous leads as we speak. During the activation, investigators worked tirelessly since the inception of the investigation and were able to develop a strong person of interest. The person of interest and the above vehicle belonging to the victim were located between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. on January 5th, 2020. The subject was located by investigators in a wooded area, and the victim's vehicle was located subsequently. Enough information had been developed to detain this subject in relation to the offenses associated with the investigation. On January 6, 2020, the Madison County State's Attorney's Office charged the following subject with offenses related to first-degree murder, and I'll spell his name. Timothy Michael Banowetz, B like boy, A-N-O-W-E-T-Z. He's a male, white, age 28. His last known address was at the 400 block of Ramblewood Way in Wentzville, Missouri. The investigation has revealed that the subject acted alone. His acts appeared to be premeditated. After reading the charging information, you can discern that there were other victims in the household during this act, but out of respect and to protect the privacy, I will not elaborate on those counts in the charging documents. These subjects were not injured. However, I want everyone to recognize that the victim's action in this case most likely saved the lives of others in the household at the time of the incident. The defendant fled the scene in the victim's vehicle after the occurrence, and I think Randy was a hero in this case. The defendant can best be described as having a transient and nomadic lifestyle. At this point in the investigation, I want to impress that it is nowhere over. We are unable to establish a direct connection to the victim and the defendant in this case. The defendant appears to be mostly established in the St. Louis, Missouri area and its respective outlying suburbs. This was a thorough and swift investigation with a quick resolution. We investigated over 60 leads and executed an estimated 8 search warrants and more most likely forthcoming. The case was a good example of good old-fashioned police work with persistency and dedication. I understand that we can't undo a horrible act, but I hope that the victim's family, friends, and associates and family find some solace in the fact that the killer is caught. The case will now be turned over to the court system, and we pray that fair justice is served. We're seeking any additional information from the public with relation to how these two may be connected. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to State's Attorney Thomas Gibbons.
Thank you, Captain Vucich. My name's Tom Gibbons, Gibbons. I'm the Madison County State's Attorney. I want to begin by also expressing my condolences and my sympathy to Randy's family, to his friends, his colleagues, and really to the breadth of our community, so many of whom have benefited from his kindness and generosity throughout his lifetime. Today is a sad day. While we're pleased to announce the charges have been filed, we're happy to inform the public that the killer has been caught. But there's no celebration here. There's a tremendous loss of an individual and the hurt and pain that will resonate across the community, but most deeply with his family and closest friends and loved ones. And we should keep them first and foremost in our minds. As prosecutors, our work begins now, and it will be our charge and our mission to hold the defendant accountable to the highest degree under the law. Once again, and I've stood here before you before and talked about how individuals come to our community to commit violent crimes, and we've seen it again this weekend. Clearly, they do not get the lesson, because when they come to Madison County, they get Madison County justice, and true justice will be served in this case. This defendant will see the rest of his life behind bars if we have anything to say about it. I want to extend my gratitude and thanks to the women and men of the Major Case Squad standing here today and all the others who assisted along the way. Our local law enforcement works tirelessly. They give everything that they have. That's why we have a good, safe community. What happened this weekend is a terrible tragedy, but it in no way represents the place that we live. It's the opposite of who we are and what we have here. But unfortunately, there are those who would come here to try to destroy it, and we will not let that happen. And the women and men standing behind me are the assurance that that will never happen. I want to thank Sheriff Lakin. I want to thank Deputy Commander Captain David Vucich, First Assistant State's Attorney Crystal Uwe, who's the head of our Violent Crimes Unit, who will be on this case, as well as Jacob Harlow, Assistant State's Attorney, also with the Violent Crimes Unit. They were out Saturday night on the crime scene working this case, making sure that every resource of the State's Attorney's Office was available to our investigators. As for the charges, specifically the defendant, Timothy Benowitz, is charged with 3 alternative counts of first-degree murder. And under Illinois law, there are multiple paths by which we can charge and convict an individual with first-degree murder, and we leave no stone unturned. The defendant is also charged with 3 counts of armed robbery, which indicate 1 count for each victim, Mr. Gori and 2 minors. 1 count of offenses related to motor vehicle, which has to do with the theft of the SUV, and 3 counts of aggravated unlawful restraint. For any further details, I would refer you to the charging document, and if there are any questions, anyone have any questions, I'd be happy to field those or turn them over to somebody who may have more information to help you.
Was there a woman who showed up who interrupted his what he was doing, the suspect, the alleged killer? And how did Mr. Gori save lives too?
It was initially reported that there was a female at the location, and I would just say that thank God for that event that helped interrupt it, but I would also say that the actions of Mr. Gori, and I can't go into specifics, but things that he did were heroic and most likely helped save the lives of the minors involved.
Captain, maybe you could help too. You guys are so immersed in this, maybe we're missing some of the obvious things, but if if you could take it from the point where the family, the Gori family is out there at their property and the suspect shows up, how did it unfold? What did he want? What did he steal? Can you just kind of tell us some of the obvious things that we...
Sure. And I have to be limited on what I say. I'm bound by Supreme Court rules from commenting on evidence. However, I will say there was an event that took place at the house that prompted somebody to call 911, and obviously we responded quickly and were there within minutes.
But in other words, the suspect showed up at this house. Did he just pick it out of the map? It was premeditated. Somebody said, how did he happen to go to this house? And what was he intending to steal? He ended up with a car and something he stole from the minors and the adult. What was it all about?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to discuss any evidence, and that would go into the evidence if I was to answer that question.
So since there's no burglary charge, he did not break in, apparently.
I'm not going to comment on the entry, how it was made into the residence. Again, that goes towards evidence.
How did the suspect know of the victim? Had they met before?
At this point in the investigation, we are not able to establish any direct connect between the victim and the defendant.
However, you did say, and I'll quit dominating, that this was premeditated. How did he premeditate that he was going to go to this property and commit a crime?
There was definitely a plan in place before he went there, and we have evidence to suggest that, but we can't comment on the specifics of that.
What did he want?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Well, I mean, can you say was the primary motive to get some money, to get the SUV?
We're not going to comment on motive, sir.
Was anything else taken?
We're not going to comment on any of the items that are involved in this or any evidence at all.
I've talked to friends, acquaintances of Mr. Gori's, and they tell me that they and their friends are shocked, stunned by this. They're scared because they're the same realm of friends, and some of them are taking down their social media websites. Do you believe you have the only person responsible, or should they be concerned?
Yes, I'm confident we have the sole person responsible. There's no evidence in the investigation to suggest that there was anyone else involved in this incident.
Well,
She had her hand up first.
go ahead.
Was there anything in the getaway car, or was there anything that used?
Well, the victim's car was taken during the incident. And I'm not going to comment on any other vehicles involved in the incident because, again, that's considered evidence at this point. I'd like to comment on that, but unfortunately I can't. So.
Well, you know, the good people of Madison County are going to be scratching their heads after this news conference unless you tell us a little bit more.
And I understand, I respect that.
There must be something you can
Yeah.
say without jeopardizing the case about what was it all about.
I understand, I respect that, but I'd like to save it for the court system instead of airing too much out here. So,
It seems like robbery was one of the incidents, if he's charged with 3 counts of it.
a lot of the information that you'll find in the charging document will explain that. So obviously one of the offenses of robbery is you have to take something by force.
Is this a man who's been arrested have a long criminal record, or what do we know about him?
I'm not at liberty to discuss anyone's criminal history at a media press conference.
Were you able to track the suspect in the car, or are you not able to do that?
I'm not going to comment on any of the evidence or any of our abilities with respect to that.
Can you rule out some things for us? You can't tell us what it is.
Possibly.
Can you rule out, he was a prominent attorney, can you rule out that it had anything to do with his work as a lawyer?
We're keeping all options open at this point. Of a lot of times the reason why is never answered even by law enforcement. Sometimes we're able to determine motive, but oftentimes we can't give closure to the family or friends of victims of the reason why.
You said the suspect was caught in a wooded area. Can you give us any more detail about how he was caught?
This was good, dedicated police work, and I think they should be recognized for this. The officers scoured the area continuously, and they were able to locate him in a wooded area less than 24 hours after the incident.
Any surveillance video that you're able to help with the investigation?
Again, Rocky, that goes towards evidence. I can't comment on any surveillance video.
Was the wooded area in Madison County or some other?
The wooded area was in the vicinity of where the victim resided, yes, and the incident.
How far away approximately?
I would say approximately 1,200 feet.
And how far was the car from there? Or is that what you just asked? Is the victim's car and the suspect were found about 1,200?
That was recovered in the vicinity of the victim's residence as well.
So we can say that this was a targeted, premeditated event. He went to this property intentionally, correct?
That's correct.
But we can't say what he wanted to steal.
I'm not going to comment on that, sir.
The defendant was found 1,200 feet away from the residence. Was he impaired?
I'm not going to comment on any mental state or any type of impairment of the defendant.
So was he, you got him about 12 hours later? 8
That's,
hours?
yes, about approximately 12 hours later,
Was
yes.
he hanging out by the car, sleeping, or
He was in a wooded area,
just by
walking
himself?
around, yes, by himself.
Is that where the dogs came into play, that you brought in the search crew?
We brought in a search crew to comb the fields for any additional evidence that may be beneficial in the investigation.
Are you able to say anything more about the restraint? I know that's part of it here. Can you give us any more detail about what specifically was used?
Again, no, that will go towards an evidentiary item that was used, and I can't comment on that.
Do we know how long he was in the home for?
He was in there for an extended period of time, is all I'm going to say.
Was the
More than an
victim,
hour?
I'm not going to say specifics. Yep.
it was the young people and the victim who was killed, they were the three that were restrained?
Yes.
And just so I understand it accurately, Mr. Gibbons was saying that Mr. Gori probably saved the lives of the others by intervening and preventing some action against them?
We can't talk about what happened in the home that night. There are a lot of things that we're prohibited from talking about, and there are a lot of things that we think it could jeopardize the prosecution to talk about in specific. But I want people to know that Randy took upon himself certain things that really changed the outcome of things so much more for the better. And it's horrible what happened, but it could have been much, much worse. And I think he, I don't know how to explain it better. When we go to trial, you'll know it all.
So did he fight with the defendant to prevent some harm to his children?
I can't talk about what he did. I can't do that at this point.
Sorry, were you saying it was the woman who had interrupted it? Was that who called 911, or did you not?
I'm not saying specifically. I think you can draw your conclusions from the facts that you've been given here as to what all that means.
Was the suspect wearing a mask, a green mask?
Again, sir, that's an evidentiary item, and I can't comment on that. Yes,
We
Sanford?
get the charging documents.
Yes, charging documents will be made available. Charging documents will be made available on Madison County Sheriff's Office Facebook page, as well as other arenas. We'll get those out to you guys, as well as booking photos of the
You
defendant.
don't have any paper copies here now?
I'll be happy to have some copies here in just a few minutes.
Okay, and how about a photo?
We will get those out as well, yes. We didn't want to compromise anything and bring photos here. They will be sent out immediately, yes.
Just to clarify, you think that this was like a hit job?
Hold on just a second. Did you have something else?
Send them out to the media outlet,
Yes, sir.
ASAP.
Yes,
You're gonna send it to the telegraph first?
maybe.
You don't think that this was a hit job of any sort?
There's no evidence in this case that I can comment on as far as anything that you're alluding to. I can't comment on that.
And will you guys be releasing the 911 call at all?
That's considered evidence, so most likely not at this point.
Did you, or can you say the ages of the children?
Again, out of respect for the victim's family, I would prefer to leave them out of this, but they were minors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was the suspect injured?
No, he was not injured during the incident. No evidence to suggest that.
What's the longest possible sentence you can give with all these charges?
I'll defer to Tom Gibbons on that, or Assistant State's Attorney Crystal Uwe.
With these particular charges, each of the first-degree murder charges carries a sentence of 20 to 60 years. Under truth in sentencing for the state of Illinois, that would be served at 100%. There are certain factors, if proven at trial, that could extend that term beyond 60 years up to natural life.
Would these all be served consecutive or at the same time?
The alternate theories of first-degree murder would merge into one, so it would be one sentence for the first-degree murder of Randy Gori. However, the charges against the other victims could be argued to run consecutively to that charge.
And the two minors were not injured,
They were not injured.
but they were restrained.
Yes, and I would refer to the counts and the charge. So,
Are they with other family members now? The children, are they with other family members?
out of respect for the privacy of the family, I'm not going to comment on that.